Ladies and gentlemen, it's your host, Jordan Kammer, and I have one of the most electrifying guests of all time. He is Mr. Chicago, Mr. Chicago Wrestling, Mr. Warrior Wrestling, the man, the myth, the legend, Frank the Clown.
Normally I get sometimes subpar intros, mediocre intros. That was one of the better ones. I wouldn't say it's the best one, but it's definitely one of the better ones. And before we go on any further, I'm in the comfort of my own home, so I can, be more comfortable. Give me a little bit of a drum roll.
Whoa.
There we go.
Look at that.
Look at that. Look at that. It's just my everyday normal hair now.
Yeah. Why did you decide to change it?
Honestly, I knew that I would be getting more physical these past couple of weeks, and I hate when my wig falls off. So I figured, well, if the wig falls off, I might as well have something under it, or just not have to worry about the wig falling off at all and take it off myself. So really, that's the long and short of it. And I'm also a psychopath. So I figured, why not? People are like, oh, why don't you spray your hair? Like do some, you know what? I'm dyeing it. We'll just see how it goes. Why not? So when I do something, I go all in. So yeah, here we are.
Absolutely. So speaking of more physical in the last couple of weeks, let's talk about GCW. Let's get into that. So you come out. I gotta ask, were you scared? Was there a part where oh my God, GCW fans,
So, I've done spots at GCW before. This is a little bit different as it was a little bit rowdier. It was arguably, I want to say, the biggest GCW crowd ever. I think it was 1,500 people, they said, at least. And I was a surprise in the main event. So I knew I was not going to be met with a warm reception. So I did actually pull someone aside and ask, do we need security? And they said, we'll see how Cardona is when he comes out. If they don't go after him, they probably aren't going to go after you. And to that, I retorted, well, Matt Cardona is slightly bigger than me. So someone might feel braver going after Frank the Clown than they would Matt Cardona. So he went out. He made it to the ring in one piece. I felt a little bit better about it. And there was actually security that I wasn't aware of until I actually watched it back. So I was very much dialed in. So I made it to the ring. I lived to tell about it. The ring was covered in glass, which was a surprise to me. I knew there was a death match before. I had assumed the ring had been swept, which is normal tradition after a death match. So I literally didn't know there was glass into the ring until I was standing right in front of the ring. I'm like, oh, okay, we're doing this then. All right.
Oh no. Being there live and seeing you come out was no way. It was such an awesome moment. I was like, oh my gosh, this is hysterical.
Yeah. And I didn't tell anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't smarten up anyone. I knew ahead of time. I knew pretty much the night before. And it was just one of those things where I knew it was going to be a big reaction. I knew people were going to be mad. I knew that it was going to get buzz. I knew it was going to be funny. That's the most important thing. I knew it was going to be funny. And I knew we were going to take everybody kind of for a roller coaster. So yeah, it was super cool. And again, I had friends there and I had a lot of people I knew watching, and I didn't tell anyone. I'm just you know what? They're all going to be along for the ride. So yeah.
That's awesome. Whose idea was it? Was it your idea? Did you go to them? They come to you, or
wasn't my idea? They came to me, the night before, and they were kind of being weird about it. They weren't kind of telling me what it was exactly. They said, just be ready tomorrow, bring your gear. I'm like, okay. And then I kind of put two and two together. And as I talked to somebody else with GCW, that's laid down the plan for me, but it was still it wasn't a sure thing until I got there the next day. And, I got there, the show started at, I want to say 7 p.m. or whatever. Yeah. And the show started and I hadn't talked to anybody yet. I was just backstage, just hanging out. And eventually I'm like, are we good? Are we doing this? And oh yeah. I'm like, okay, I have to get ready. There's a process to Frank the Clown getting ready. So yeah, things come together very quickly in wrestling a lot of times, and it's never a sure thing until you get through the curtain. So yeah, it was super fun though.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah. Speaking of memorable moments, there have been a couple off the top of my head within the last 5 years that come to mind when I think of Frank the Clown, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to start off from the beginning. Mick Foley Warrior Wrestling hardcore match. Did you guys talk about anything beforehand, or did you guys just go right into it?
Yeah. So I'm like, there's like this tradition, I think, in wrestling a lot of times where like you're supposed to run things by the other person when it comes to promos and everything. I have never done that once in my entire thing. You know what? I just go out there, and it's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission, in my opinion. So I'd rather just go out there, let it rip. And like, you know, good old Cactus is a pro's pro. He knows. So I knew it would be more of an awkward conversation if I said, hey, can I say this? Hey, can I say that? I'd rather just go out there and do it. And if he's mad, then he's mad afterwards. We'll talk about it. But no, it was honestly, we talked about how we're going to get to where we need to get to at the end. I had tossed a couple suggestions to him in which he declined, but yeah, I'm going to do what he tells me to do. You know, it's the veteran to, you know, young guy thing. And in my case, my girlfriend's father to me thing. So yeah, we talked honestly pretty briefly about everything. And then once we got out there, again, I didn't tell him a single word I was going to say. I didn't necessarily prepare what I was going to say. I had a couple one-liners, but and to me, this was crazy is like on independent wrestling, you don't really get segments like that. You get matches. You get an occasional promo. Nobody on the indies cuts promos. And if they do, they're like 1 minute long. I think, and I'm pretty confident that I cut more promos on the indies than anybody else does. I pretty much do it every single appearance I'm at, and people know I can talk. And, you know, I feel like I talk people into the building and sell stuff. So, but I am very hard pressed to find another segment on an independent wrestling show in the last X amount of years that was 20 minutes long. It was 20 minutes from my entrance to when he goes through the curtain that kept people on the edge of their seat. Everybody was on their feet. And Principal Steve, that tyrant, he pulled me aside after and he said, I think that was that was the perfect wrestling segment. And I'm like, that's all I needed. It wasn't perfect for Frank the Clown, but it was perfect for everybody else involved.
You did your part and it worked so well. Speaking of Warrior Wrestling and Steve, I actually reached out to them and I asked to get an official quote about Frank the Clown.
Oh, this ought to be good.
So whoever runs the Instagram decided to say, Warrior Wrestling loves to hate Frank the Clown.
That's nicer than I thought. I thought it would be much better. Well, they should. Here's the thing. I am Mr. Warrior Wrestling. The shirt, as I'm wearing here, it doesn't lie. I have been on more Warrior Wrestling shows than anybody else. As far as I know, I think there's a couple that are close, but I've been in every single one. I like to think that everything I've done has been memorable. It's felt important. It hasn't always necessarily been the main event. I have fought tooth and nail to be the closing of the show, which I have not done yet there. But everything I do, I want it to feel like the most important thing on the show. And in that sense, it brings everything up on the show and raises the level. So I was not on the last Warrior show. The next one is October 16th. I am not scheduled for that show. Will I show up is one thing, but as of right now, I am not scheduled. My Warrior Wrestling contract, I told people it came to an end in July. And until Warrior Wrestling Management wants to come to fair terms with Frank the Clown, you know, the people might not get what they want, and that is Frank the Clown.
And that's unfortunate because Frank the Clown makes Warrior Wrestling Warrior Wrestling. So during the Stadium Series, it was the amazing entrance in the car.
Yes.
And the helicopter.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that had to be your idea, right?
Yeah, kind of. So like, you know, the car stuff, any entrance stuff is all me. And like, I can get away with it there because there's more logistically, there's more room, right? You could drive a car and you can land a helicopter on the field. You can't do that anywhere else. So they let me do whatever the heck I want there. And I don't really answer to anybody when I go there. But in terms of like the helicopter itself, it really was a joke for over a year. They're like, oh, you've done the car, you've done the golf cart, you've had Mick Foley dress people, you've had live performances. You know, what if we could do a helicopter? And we'd always be like, ha, 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 ha. And then one day they called me out of the blue and they're like, it was just one line. It's a classic line. They go, what if we could do the helicopter? And that was it. So they had took care of the logistics of it for me. I had never been in a helicopter in my life up until that moment. I'm kind of freaked out about heights. Like I go on roller coasters, I fly, I do all that, but I don't like looking down at my impending death. I like being secure, and you're secure in a helicopter, but like you hear helicopter things going wrong. Now we were traveling a very short distance. It basically was from one side of the school to the other side of the school. But once I was in it, I was just so, I told some other people, like I did in another interview with that, I was so dialed in that moment that like, I just wasn't even thinking of anything else. I wasn't worried. I wasn't nervous. I was just going down. I was like, this is going to be a moment. I have about 2 minutes to enjoy traveling around, and then it's go time. And I think everybody who was there, I don't think anybody's ever going to forget that. And again, nobody's ever going to do that on independent wrestling ever again. Hell, even WWE, they had Charlotte do a helicopter entrance. That was pre-taped at WrestleMania. She didn't fly into the field live. Ric Flair did it 30 years ago. That's the only comparable thing. So again, Frank the Clown's always about creating moments, making people remember these things, leave the show talking about Frank the Clown. So, that's what I'm all about. And that moment is a very special moment to me because, again, it was just, I didn't tell anyone about it. I didn't tell my girlfriend. I didn't tell anybody there. There was like 5 people who knew ahead of time, and people started catching on a little bit when like the helicopter landed on the other side. And people were, I don't know, you were there, I think, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you had saw the helicopter land on the other side of the field, but some people maybe were starting to catch on, but nobody actually knew until I came out of the helicopter and the helicopter landed on the goddamn field.
Well, I mean, that was an awesome moment. I'm never going to forget that. I'll never forget that moment. That to me is like, some people talk about, Hogan and Giant when he slammed him. For me, like growing up, I grew up in 07, 2012. I had that great era of punk.
Yeah.
And, I tell us like to everybody I met, my first show was Money in the Bank 2011.
Wow.
So, like,
hell of a first show. Jeez.
And I remember sitting in the rafters watching Punk walk out. And for me, that was like, wow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Frank the Clown comes down in a helicopter. And those are just moments that like I actually bring up as a wrestling fan. I'm like, dude, Warrior Wrestling's awesome. They're bringing people in on helicopters. And then they've got a guy jumping off the goalpost.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, taking out you and Ego.
It hit Rob more than it hit me.
Yeah.
We'll pull back the curtain there.
I bet you were happy about that too.
Yeah. Again, I'm very flexible in terms of like, I'm up for anything, if it makes sense and it's worth it. And again, like, I took a tombstone off the apron through a door from Joey Janela, and then he does the splash off the swanton off the goalpost. I got dumped off the bleachers. I've taken, the barbed wire bat to my crotch. I've taken an attitude adjustment from Pillman through chairs. Like, things don't always end up well for Frank the Clown, but again, you leave there remembering those moments. Everybody could have matches. Everybody's a good wrestler nowadays. That's not a slight on anybody, but not everybody is you don't necessarily remember the matches as much as you do the moments. And it's funny because I'm like a veteran kind of, just a lot of people. I'm 30. So a lot of the guys are younger that I'm sharing a locker room with. And, I tell the young kids, which is so weird coming out of me, like, guys, you can do all the moves you want. Moves are cool. Moves are great. Gifts are great. But what lives on forever? Moments. Moments live on forever. So when, however they take that is one thing. It's easy for me to say as I'm not necessarily wrestling every single night, but I've always told everybody I work with, promoters, whoever, I said, look, I might not be the most important thing on the show tonight. I might not be in the main event. I should be, but I'm not, but I'm going to do my damnness to make it the most important thing on the show.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, like, you talk about moments and everything, like there have been so many great moments, especially from Warrior Wrestling, but like one of my favorite moments as a wrestling fan was the first dance, and you got that hug. So I got to ask, how did it feel? Was it planned? Did he know? Do you guys have a relationship at all? Cause in Milwaukee, he saw you guys as well. So
yeah. So the hug heard around the world. The hug felt around the world, maybe. Yeah, man. It was special. I go back to, we were talking about Money in the Bank 2011, and like Punk's my hero. I have been on record saying this to anyone who will listen, that Punk's my hero. He's been that way for 15 years. I had been following him long before WWE, and the whole career. And I had mentioned to him before, like, you know, when you write a book, I feel like I should be possibly in line to, like, you know, help, you know, not ghostwrite it, but like contribute, because I know I'm like an encyclopedia on this man's career. And so Money in the Bank 2011, what to me was like the most special night as a wrestling fan. This was long before I was doing anything as Frank the Clown in the ring. I was still Frank the Clown 2011, believe it or not, but I was Frank the Clown, the fan. And so that night, I had again been on record saying I never thought anything could top that. Personally, for me, because it was the perfect storm. It was in Chicago. It was this crazy atmosphere. It was, you know, John Cena's always been like my second favorite. I'm not ashamed to say I love John Cena. So it's my number one versus my number two, and this amazing story in Chicago. An incredible match. It delivered where things don't necessarily live up to the hype. It exceeded the hype. And again, in that moment, Punk hops the ramp after the match. He blows the kiss. I'm right there. I'm enshrined in that photo. And it's kind of a weird full circle thing. So to take it to the first dance, this is now, 10 years later. And I have a good relationship with Punk. You know, we're not best friends. He might be my best friend. I don't think I'm his best friend. But no, we talk relatively often, but he didn't know where I was going to be sitting. I had never mentioned I was going to be there. I mean, it's an assumed thing. So I had no inclination of what was going to happen. I mean, we all knew he was kind of going to be there. It was like the worst kept secret in wrestling, but there was a little shred of doubt that some people had because his name was never mentioned, right? So I didn't know what to expect. So as I saw him turn the corner, you know, we locked eyes, and like, I'm a dork and I had a shirt made. Nobody else had it. It's the Punk XX, which was a Bulls jersey ripoff that they had a pin of it that he wore the pin. So I see him looking at the shirt, and I'm like, you like that? You like that shirt? Comes over, we have a hug, exchange a couple words there. And yeah, it was, man, like, it was really special. Like, I was wiping the tears from my eyes afterwards. I was trying to be big, tough guy, but it was awesome. So there are two different moments, Money in the Bank and that, because it's hard to compare the two, but I never felt like anything would be able to touch that Money in the Bank. And I was like saddened by it. I'm like, I don't think anything's ever be that good for me personally. And luckily I was wrong. It took 10 years, but I was wrong. So yeah, man, it was everything I wanted and so much more.
That's awesome. I mean, that's such a great thing to hear. I mean, you hear all these stories about how like Punk's affected everyone's lives. And, you know, you got the one guy who was crying and everyone kind of gave him crap for it. But like, these are real, genuine emotions. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I mean, I felt them all. And like I said, I just wasn't captured on camera crying. That guy happened to be. So, and yeah, everyone was giving that guy crap. Like, screw you, like, go to hell. Like, wrestling is designed to make you feel something. If you feel nothing, then you shouldn't be a wrestling fan, or the people that are doing their jobs aren't doing it well enough. So to be able to draw that emotion, he hadn't even said a word yet. He was just walking to the ring, you know, and it meant so much as a Chicagoan, fellow Chicagoans. Like, we know what it means to us with Punk. I knew what that meant to him. And there's a lot that people don't know between him and I, and then obviously just, you know, private matters, but like him and I having that moment meant, I think, a little bit more to, like, there's more to it than just a random hug. There was a lot behind it. So yeah, it was very wholesome, very emotional, but yeah, most importantly, it was just very, very special. Just that whole night was just awesome.
That's a great moment. Like, yeah. I don't know what to say after that. I mean, that's so genuine and pure. Like, from, you know what I mean? I mean, you play this heel, but then, like, you know, there's a whole different side of wrestling, which is just awesome. And so I guess, where do you go next? Like, where are your plans next? Like, what are you going to plan on doing now? Yeah.
So I was just thinking about this earlier, and I know I get classified as a manager, which isn't wrong. I have competed in matches, so you could throw me as classification of a wrestler. I like to think that I'm all those things, but also more importantly, I like to think that Frank the Clown is just a star. And in an industry that is filled with great wrestlers, is filled with great managers, there's an absence and lack of true stars. And that's where I want to come in. So wherever that is, just depends. I'm going to continue to work on my craft. I'm going to continue to make people dislike me even more than they already do. It might even be tough because a lot of people dislike me a lot. So, it's an exciting time. I feel like I'm on a pretty good run right now. And the pandemic really kind of, it stunted my momentum a bit, was really starting to gain a lot of momentum, especially down like freelance wrestling and a couple other spots. Pandemic hits and everything stops. And again, I'm not the only one affected, of course, but like I knew coming out of the pandemic, I'm like, I want to make some changes like physically, and invest in ridiculous outfits, work on, how I could deliver promos differently, new merch, get all the stuff out there, think differently than everybody else does. I remember when I had made my announcement, I was going to start taking bookings for wrestling, maybe like 2017 or something. I mentioned in my post, like, I want to do things differently, different than everybody else. I want to take a different road. And I'm a very unorthodox person because I am in some cases carrying shows, and I take that responsibility very seriously. And again, it's not a slight on anybody else, but shows sometimes are promoted around me, and it's hard pressed to find. And people could take this as arrogance, and people could say, is this really Frank or Frank the Clown talking? I've main evented more shows this past year than anybody else, in my opinion, on the indies a lot of times. And again, not a knock on anybody, but I'm being put in spots where I'm being trusted to deliver, and I continue to deliver, which means I continue to be put in those spots. And like, I think right now, I don't even think it's announced yet, and I don't know when you'll put this out, but like the next freelance wrestling show is going to be on October 22nd. The show is called Killer Clown in Logan Square. And the poster is three of my faces over the Logan Square auditorium, like looking down and laughing. I'm not wrestling on this show. But who else is getting the centerpiece of shows, the shows named after them? That's technically not a wrestler. There's nobody else. So I'm trying to forge my own path. And I have a lot of good people in my corner. I got a good support system. I'm learning a lot, but I'm very confident in my ability. So wherever I wind up, and you never know if it could be, Frank the Clown could be All Elite, or hey, Frank the Clown might be NXT 2.0. Who knows? But it's not as far off as people may think. But we'll see we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah. No, I mean, you bring up a manager type, and I don't look at you as a manager type because you're Frank the Clown. You're someone that comes in and you make a show 10 times better. Like you said, like leaving someone with an impression when they go home. That's exactly what you do every show. So it's like, I thought about this today on my car ride up here. I don't know a lot of older wrestlers just because I'm 19 years old, right?
Yeah.
But something that sticks out to me is Jimmy Hart.
Yeah.
And the closest thing I've seen to that is actually you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a comparison I've gotten. And I that Jimmy Hart's a Hall of Famer. He's awesome. He's annoying. He was, but he made people remember. I think the difference between myself and other managers like that is like, I can stand on my own 2 feet without somebody next to me. Jimmy Hart could, but he was never put in that position necessarily where it's just like, it's just Jimmy Hart. It's Jimmy Hart with Hulk Hogan. It's Jimmy Hart with Bruce the Barber Beefcake. It's Jimmy Hart with whoever. And again, Frank the Clown has people by his side as well, but I'm trying to carve out my own specific role that's maybe never even been done before. And whether it's, me managing someone or me wrestling or me just being there, I've been doing commentary now. I'm trying to make myself as valuable as I possibly can so that when the time comes and my number's called upon to show up on national television or show up somewhere, I'm ready to go. And I think I know I'm ready to go right now. If you were to ask me this a year ago or even like 2 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, I'm ready to go then. I wasn't probably ready to go. But I've learned a lot in the last year and a half, 2 years. And like, I'm really hitting my stride. I'm really confident. And I left the last freelance show, which is the last show I did 2 weeks ago or whatever. Yeah. I did my promo there. I walked backstage and normally I'm pretty, not emotionless, but like, I don't know. I'm cool. I'm even keel. Like before I go through the curtain, a lot of people pace back and forth. They're all jacked up and that's fine. I'm like stoic. I don't move. I'm just calm. I don't even get nervous. I get anxious. I want things to get over with because I put a lot of pressure on myself. So after I walked through the curtain after doing this promo, I was just like, I let it out. I screamed. I was like, yeah. I like never done that before because I was like, yeah, you nailed that shit, dude. Like, hell yeah. Like, you're killing it now. So yeah, I want to keep that up. I want to keep feeling that. And wherever it's going to be in Chicago or anywhere, East Coast, West Coast, I got a lot of stuff lined up for the rest of the year, which I'm excited about.
That's awesome. I mean, to hear more of Frank the Clown's going to be around for the next year, that gives me such a great feeling to hear that.
Yeah. And I'm in Florida currently. I have a beautiful home here in Florida. So I bounce back and forth often. When I got this home, I had already committed to a lot of the Chicago stuff. But here's the thing. I am Mr. Chicago, as you had dubbed me. So I will always find my way back there no matter where I'm at in the world, because that's my home. That's my home. So yeah, I always look forward to anything that's in the Midwest or in Chicago specifically.
That's awesome. Well, I am so excited just to see where this goes. But you brought up saying that you're somewhat of a manager. So you've got Robert and you're starting to get Trevor.
Yeah.
So is there anybody else on the indies that you see right now that you're like, I want this guy? Or is there anybody else that you're like, no, I don't want this guy?
So I have people in mind. I don't know if you know Calvin Tankman.
I've heard
Calvin
the name.
Tankman was on one of the Warriors shows. He's an MLW. This dude's a beast. Big dude. He's athletic. Man, he's a tank, literally Tankman, pun intended. I had told him, I'm like, yo, you don't need Frank the Clown, but if you want Frank the Clown, I'm here. But I've been wanting a girl. I have been doing some scouting. I've zoned in on a couple people, and that'll be something that may be seen soon. So Frank the Clown only scouts very particular people that he thinks can be as much of a star as he is, or he can help bring up to Frank the Clown's level. That's what it's all about. I already am very confident I'm at a great level. So I want to help bring somebody else to that, like Trevor. Trevor is pretty new. I've been in the business longer than Trevor. Trevor's younger than me. Trevor's still what you would call a little green, but he's come into his own so much in the last 6 months. But I saw it in him a while ago. So I had reached out and handpicked, like, I want to work with Trevor. I didn't even clear with Trevor. I told one of the promoters, I said, I want Trevor. Let's see what I can do with him. Let me get my hands on this new toy. And I think it's been awesome. And I see him getting better each and every time out, but it's a completely different role because Rob is a 20-year vet. So Rob likes to boss me around a lot of times. And it's a different Frank the Clown when I'm with Rob versus when I'm with Trevor. With Rob, it's more serious. Like, Rob is like Brock Lesnar. He's like the Brock Lesnar of the indies sometimes, because he's just a beat. He's a maniac. He's a psycho himself, but like, he's no bullshit. He's not gonna do much talking. He's just gonna go in there and do his thing. Trevor talks more than maybe I do sometimes. So I get to be a little bit more loosey-goosey with Trevor. But yeah, I want to build kind of a stable where I have somebody in every region, where I got somebody in California, I got somebody in Texas, I got somebody in New York, I got people in Chicago, so that I can go everywhere and have somebody with me. And then I could bring them, bring somebody from California to Chicago, bring somebody from the Northeast to Chicago. So, being a manager, it's all about helping get your person over, bring them up, get them heat, get them cheered, whatever. So I almost find it a challenge to test myself and see who I can do. And a couple of people I have an eye on, I feel like will be a little bit of a challenge. Not a slight on them, but simply like, let me get these people out of their comfort zone, put them next to me, and let's roll. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, that dude, again, you see talent like you do. Trevor has, I've seen him grow in the last 6 months.
Yes.
Rob, I mean, he had a match with Mox last year during the pandemic.
Yeah, he had this great summer run in AEW. Darby, Mox, Cage, Starks, Sean Spears. He wrestled Joey Janela again at the First Dance. Yep. Rob he's been on a sick run, and again, he's been around forever. I mean, he was with WWE over 10 years ago. So he's been through it. Yeah.
He's been through it. So does Rob give you any, like, I don't want to say advice, but is he like, hey, Frank, maybe we should try this? Or is it more of you going to Rob with ideas?
Rob is a man he's not a man of many words. He likes to come in, take care of business, and go a lot of times. So if anything, it's me saying like, "Hey, Rob, I got this gear made. You're gonna wear it. Enjoy." Oh, he's the old school mentality, and I'm kind of old school too. But like, I'm a new school, old school, which if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So like, I think of like, I'm like, Rob, we're gonna come to the ring in a car. Okay. Cool. Like, I don't like, hey, what should we do? It's more like, no, Rob, we're going to do this. He can take care of the match stuff. That's his thing. Everything else, presentation, that's what I'm all about. Presentation and flair is Frank the Clown. I want the spectacle. I want the pomp and circumstance. So I will always handle those things. So Rob's been really good in terms of like teaching me things about in-ring stuff or spots and all that. But I've learned to stand more on my own 2 feet. So I'm not reliant upon Rob, and Rob's not reliant upon Frank either. So that's good. So Rob hasn't been around, as much with me lately, for one reason or another, but we'll be reuniting soon. And yeah, so but it'll be almost a different Frank the Clown the next time he's with me, because I've done so much without him now that I've kind of evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I see it. I mean, I can tell from GCW, like the way you walked in at GCW is just a different Frank the Clown than it was a year ago at Warrior.
Yeah.
The way I see it. Like, you came in, you were like, I know I've got the heat, and let's roll with it.
Yeah, I don't have to worry. Like, it's at Freelance, they have, Wrestling with Unicorns is backstage, and they're taking clips, and like right before you go out, and they posted on Facebook. I was going to share it. I haven't yet, where they're filming me, and I go up to the camera, and this is about a minute before I go through the curtain, and I go, everybody paces back and forth when you do these videos because they're nervous. They're not going to get a reaction. Frank the Clown is not nervous because he knows he's going to get a reaction. So then I'm standing there, about 30, 45 seconds go by. My music hits, and I have the new music now. So it takes a second, but it sounds kind of similar. And then when people catch on, you could hear like the groans that like, it's like an audible groan that goes through the place, like a hush. And then I walk up to the camera and I'm like, you hear that? I have no, time to go to work. 18 months I've been away from Freelance. They didn't forget. I go through the curtain, bigger reaction. So at GCW, I have confidence. I know this role I'm in. I know I have to play this role to the fullest, and I got to ham it up to the ring because that's my time to shine. And yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that too, because I look back at even some of the stuff I did with Warrior, like a year, 2 years ago. I look different. I'm more flamboyant. I have more confidence now. I'm more animated. So I just figured out, like, just be as ridiculous as you possibly can. And I look back at some of the stuff I did like in 2017, very early Frank the Clown days. I really didn't start getting consistently to like mid 2018, but I did some spots in 2017 and all that. And I would come out in like a black t-shirt that would say like WWE Network Megastar, and like black jeans, and then like my face pinned my wig. And like looking back, I'm like, man, what the hell was I thinking? I look terrible. I just look like a skinny, like I'm wearing normal clothes. Like that doesn't make any sense. So I look back at that. I look back at now, and I have these robes, and they're custom made, and I'm wearing jewelry, and I'm doing these big entrances. And I'm like, this is what Frank needs to be. And it took me a little bit to figure it out, but it takes a bit. But now I'm really in tune with like the character of Frank the Clown. And really, ultimately, Frank the Clown is very delusional. Frank the Clown thinks he's the biggest star in the world, and he believes it. And he's going to tell you, and he's going to make you believe it. Even if it's not the case, he's going to literally force it down your throat and make you believe it. So one way or another, you're going to accept. If you say something enough times, somebody's going to start to believe it. So I'm just going to keep telling everybody I'm the biggest star in the world, and they'll believe it. And I am. So yeah.
Dude, I leave you
speechless every time I talk. I love it.
That is that's true. I mean, I am speechless because everything you say is actually like so true. Like, I feel the same way that you say. Like, I believe that Frank the Clown is one of the biggest stars in the world, in the professional wrestling business, I would say.
Hey, your words, not mine, but they are also my words because I've said it a million times. So we can agree there.
Absolutely. So I guess before we wrap things up, what has been your favorite moment as in the ring, outside of the ring? What is that one moment that you can look back on when you're set and done with this and say, yep, this was it?
Man, that's a good question. I'll I'll focus on in the ring first, I guess. So I would say there's two that probably jump out at me. Would be, I would say three, but so it's gonna be hard to pick one. But the Mick Foley one was one where, I honestly, this does sound bad, I wasn't really a fan of his when I was growing up. Like, I was a WCW kid. So like, I religiously watched WCW. I wasn't even flipping to Monday Night Raw. And again, I was 8, 9 years old then. And then I had discovered WWF literally when WCW got bought out. Like, I knew it existed, but I really wasn't flipping back and forth. So like, I didn't love Stone Cold and The Rock and all them because I just wasn't watching them. So obviously, like, I'm like pseudo part of the family. So it was like this cool moment where like I was able to share this ring. And obviously he's a Hall of Famer, he's one of the biggest stars ever. To have it in my hometown, I had like, my parents were there, like Noel was there, a lot of my close friends were there. The place was packed. That was super cool. That was one of the times where I got through the curtain and I literally just sat on the ground, like right through the curtain on the steps. I just sat there by myself and I was just like, okay. At first I was mad at myself for a couple things because I was like, oh, I should have said this better because I'm the biggest critic in the world, but nobody would ever notice. But then I was like, okay, Frank, this was cool. You need to really breathe this in that this was cool. Like, yeah, he's your girlfriend dad. You see this guy often. But this is, you weren't in there with him. You were in there with Mick Foley, Hall of Fame wrestling legend. And you said all these crazy things to him and he's taking bumps. He's doing leg drops, which I had no idea he was going to do. I'm like, oh, he's about to do a leg drop. He probably shouldn't be doing this, but he's going to do it anyways. So that was one. I would say, and then the helicopter thing, just as a spectacle, like how can you top that? That's up there. And then also like personally for me, I did a promo against Kylie Ray back in January 2020, where we had crashed the ring after her match in Mask. We had demasked. I had been gone from freelance for a couple of months. The reaction as I pulled my hood down and revealed the wig was awesome. Like, oh man, I love that reaction. It might be my favorite reaction ever. And I put a lot of pressure on myself to deliver this promo. And I delivered about this 5 to 6 minute promo to close the show where it was very real. And I put so much pressure on myself, like to nail it. And I have a big chip on my shoulder with freelance. Still to this day, I had made my first appearance at freelance in 2016. Like, and the pre-show, I did like this shoot promo. I went over really well. I thought I was like, oh shit, I'm onto something here. Didn't get booked for almost 2 years. They didn't want me. I took offense to it to a degree, but like, I get it. So I had to earn my way in and I did. And then I cut this promo. I'm being put in this spot. It's a sink or swim. Like, you got to deliver. I delivered. The next show, the next month, coming off the heels of my promo, was the first sold out show at Logan Square Auditorium. The show is named Send in the Clowns, named after me. I'm on the poster. That's the same thing I was saying, right? About like being in that spot. And I took such pride in that show being sold out. And I knew I'm not like going to be naive and be like, I'm the reason it's sold out 100%. No, it's the brand sells it. The Kylie sells it. Effie sells it. Everybody else in that show sells it. But to me, closing that show previously and telling this story, which started even months before that, because we had a match with Kylie in June of 2019, to then carry it on 6 months later, 7 months later, whatever. And then it's still going on to this day. It's like it's almost a 3-year story, but that I take a lot of pride in because it was a first ever sellout Logan Square the next month. And whether people want to admit it or not, I contributed a very large part of that. And that's just something that I was like, you know what? Frank the Clown, he could be a needle mover. Frank the Clown's a draw. And I think, again, that opened a lot of people's eyes and in the business and fan wise and whatever. So those in-ring stuff is a very long-winded answer, but those are my 3 in-ring. Awesome. And then out of the ring, oh gosh. I mean, the hug felt around the world is that was special. That's got to be number 1 right now. And there's like a recency bias, but that's up there. The Money in the Bank 2011 was always my number 1 before that. There's a lot of cool stuff. Like, a lot of people don't even know this, but Back in 2011, I had went to a Raw in Boston, Massachusetts. For people who don't know, I was a psychopath long before I am a psychopath now. I was going to WWE shows literally like every week, everywhere. And it was a show in Boston. This is all really, my life's very strange. It was a segment where John Cena did a This Is My Life with Mick Foley. This is long before I met Noel. This is 2011 or 2011. It was the lead in to Survivor Series where The Rock and Cena tagged for the first time. The Rock's first match back. It was in New York that following Sunday at MSG. So I went to the Raw in Boston and I sat literally by myself. My buddies and I all got separated. We had different seats. So Cena comes out. He's in the ring with Foley. They're doing this thing. Cena and I have a good relationship too. And he locks eyes with me at some point throughout that was ringside. At some point throughout the segment, he locks eyes with me. And then Foley's thing is he's bringing out all these people from Cena's past. And then Cena looks and he goes, who are you going to bring out next? Frank the Clown? And I'm like, wait, what did he just say? And I'm like, okay. And I had no one to share this moment with, right? And there's none of my friends around me. I'm like, oh. My phone was like on 1% battery. My phone's blowing up. And I like literally ran out of my seat. The Rock was like coming to the ring to like rock bottom Mick Foley. I didn't even give a shit. I was just sprinting to the other side of the arena because I was going up to my other friend who also was shouted out by Cena in that promo. He did the two of us. And I was like, did you hear what he said? He had no idea. Sometimes the acoustics are bad in the arena. I was like, he said our names. So like, this was 10 years ago. So Frank the Clown has been a staple of wrestling in some way, shape, or form, whether it's behind the barricade or in the ring for a decade, over a decade. So that's like one that is like a low key one. Not low key to me, but it's low key to maybe the normal person who has no idea. Because it was like a random throwaway line on a random Raw literally 10 years ago.
Yeah. I actually looked up Frank the Clown moments because I wanted to make sure I had everything right going into this. Yeah. And that was one of the moments that came up.
Yeah. It was on YouTube. Cool. Yep. And it's one of those things too. I had no idea. And then literally I don't know if it was the next night or it was like the next week. I had been to another show and Cena comes out. I think it was the Raw the next Monday. I want to say it was like in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And Cena at the end of the show comes around and he comes right up to me. He's like, I got you on TV. And I was like, yes, you did, John. Yes, you did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. But last question, are the Rams taking it on Sunday or what?
Oof, yeah. So the Rams beat the Bucs last year in Tampa. I was at that game actually, and it was a Monday night game. We beat them with Jared Goff. And again, the Bucs really didn't come into their own until like the last month or two of the season. So they were still figuring stuff out, but it was a down in the wire game. And I'm so confident in the Rams this year. I have so many futures bets on the Rams' success this year. To win a Super Bowl, win the division, win the NFC championship, Matt Stafford win the MVP. I have a laundry list, and I'm a homer, but I'm also, I could be objective. I've been a Rams fan for 20 years, and people, and specifically in these last couple of years, I'm going to bore people with Rams talk, but Jared Goff, who I actually liked, but he would single-handedly lose games for the team. And he wouldn't necessarily put the team on his back either. So he wasn't single-handedly winning games. He had a couple great years, but they couldn't do what they wanted to do with him. And it showed as the confidence that Sean McVay had in him really slipped last year, where they were they just weren't letting him throw the ball down the field. They had no confidence. So knowing how much that Sean McVay wants to pass the ball and be an explosive offense, when they got Matt Stafford, some people, like some of my buddies are like, he's not that big of an upgrade. Stafford's not that good. I'm like, yeah, because Stafford's been on the Lions. Okay. Stafford's never had a good defense. He's never had a top 10 defense. Yeah, he had Megatron, he had receivers in his day, but like ultimately he had terrible offensive lines, no running game ever. Name a good Lions running back in the last 10 years. You literally can't. And it's just and he had a head coach that like built the offense around him. So I knew Stafford was going to be such a big upgrade. And I knew like this team was already a playoff team. They already made it to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. They won a playoff game on the road last year. They literally could have beat Green Bay in the divisional round had it not been for Jared Goff being hurt and like Aaron Donald was hurt. It was actually a tight game until like the fourth quarter. So yeah, the Bucks are a big test. And to me, they're clearly the top two teams in the NFC. I don't believe I don't buy the 49ers hype. The Rams own the Seahawks. The Cardinals, I don't believe in that. The Rams own the Cardinals. The Saints are not what they used to be. The Packers, I think, are still in the midst of a sketchy year. I don't know. I think there's weird stuff there.
Yep.
And that's really in the NFC. And then you have the Bucks. So I think it's a big test. And the Rams are at home. I was at the home opener against the Bears. They have a true home field advantage now. The place was rocking. And I just think they're going to come in prepared, and the Rams got a chip on their shoulder. And I know Brady wants to get his revenge on the Rams, I'm sure. But it's going to be a close one. But I think it's going to be a preview of the NFC Championship when it's all said and done.
Perfect, dude.
I'm stoked. Yeah,
There's your pick. The Rams are going to win it this year.
Yeah, I mean, I put my money where my mouth is. I have multiple bets on the Rams. When I did one of my fantasy drafts with my buddies, I took Matthew Stafford. I have Stafford and Brady actually, but I took Stafford actually ahead of Brady in my draft. And as I put his name on the board, because we did an in-person draft, I had my phone in my hand. I bet on Matthew Stafford doing the MVP as I put his name on the board. So I back it up. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's alpha energy right there. To bet on him as you're putting it on the board. That's
big clown energy.
Put that on a shirt, please.
Yeah. My girlfriend just laughed at it in the background. Yeah. Yep. She likes that. Yeah.
Big clown energy.
BCE.
I'm going to make that a shirt if you don't. We'll make another homemade shirt. So
hey, I'm in.
Awesome. Well, Frank, I cannot thank you enough. This has been awesome. I really appreciate this.
Hey, appreciate you. I mean this. I really, really, really appreciate the support. You and your buddies have always been there for me, whether it's dressing up like me, making signs when I'm there or when I'm not there, tweeting about me, putting me over in any way you can. That does not go unnoticed. And that's, why I'm here also. And so I really appreciate that. And keep it up. I don't mind Frank the Clown being a little bit of a baby face to some people. That's fine. I think I'm a little bit of a baby face at Warrior. They don't believe it, but I think there's pockets of the crowd there that they like themselves some Frank the Clown, whether they like to admit it or not. When you come out in a helicopter, that's a baby face thing. The promo I cut coming out of the helicopter was a babyface promo. People don't realize it. I wasn't intentional, but it depends who's across the ring from me. But yeah, no. But again, I really appreciate it, and please keep it up. Keep
Absolutely
being there, and that's it.
So you already know we will. We've got stuff planned now, but now with the big clown energy
and don't even tell me. Just be there. I'll see it.
Yep, not.
It's funny because one of the shows we had, one of the Warriors shows. Come to the ring, you guys are dressed up in the clown stuff, and Rob immediately rips off your clown guy, and I'm like, I'm going with it. Okay.
Yep.
I told Rob after, I'm like, let them. I get it, Rob, but let them cheer me. So I think the one time after, it might have been the same night where I came over to you guys and posed in front of you guys, when we were walking back. Yep. I was like, oh, you're coming. Yeah, you're like.
We were swaying left to right with you, actually.
That was it.
That was it. Yep. And Rob was looking at us what's going on?
Right. What's wrong with these guys? Yeah. So, no, yeah. So again, it truly means a lot to me. And I look forward to seeing you guys each time out there.
Absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Right on.
You have a good one. We'll talk later. We'll get some more stuff going too.
Yeah. Hit me up. You got a line to me. So if you need anything at all, however I could help out, anything, just let me know.
Appreciate it, man. You take care.
All right, dude. Take it easy.